Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar entitled Master Customer Data Building from the Center Out. I'm very pleased today to be joined by two fantastic industry leaders from both Domo and Yahoo to help us start the conversation today. I'll give them a quick introduction, but certainly invite you to continue the conversation with them using the Q&A feature. If you have any questions about the content that they discuss or the conversation that they start, we'll have a good amount of time towards the end of today's presentation to have that conversation with both of our presenters. My name is Adam Corey. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Tealium. And if you don't know Tealium, we are all about helping customers take advantage of the data that flows through their systems, helping to make sure that all of their channels, devices, and vendors are on equal footing, working with a common definition of data and managing those vendors and tag-based integrations with a common view of the customer. I'm also joined by Paul Sieverts from Domo and Justin Thomas from Yahoo. Paul is known as Domo's Sultan of Spend with a great 11 plus years of experience in digital marketing, specializes in helping companies in new growth channels as well as existing one in paid campaigns, search, social, and display. And Justin Thomas from Yahoo is the Senior Manager of Partnerships there. He brings a deep background in advertising technologies and a great depth of knowledge around the ecosystem that surrounds display, mobile, and beyond. And really excited to have them both join us to talk about their perspectives, what their customers and partners are doing in this approach for working more closely with customer data and bringing data together to build better experiences across all of our engagement channels with customers. As I mentioned, we will have time at the end of today's presentation for some questions and answers, so I encourage you to use that Q&A box. If for any reason we don't get to your particular question, we will share them with the presenters so that they can follow up after the webinar. And then we'll also make sure that each of you has a copy of today's webcast so that you can refer to it later, dive into individual slides, ask follow-up questions, and also share it with your colleagues. So I thought I would start off, since Tealium's focus is really in helping companies capitalize on the data that exists in their website, mobile applications, and other systems, I thought it would make sense to start from a data perspective and start from Tealium's perspective, and then bring it over to both Paul and Justin to focus on what you can do and the power of working with that data. So if we think about the topic of today's webinar, we're trying to master customer data, and I think this is a buzzworthy topic, but sometimes we limit ourselves when we talk about what customer data could really be. I think it's really common for us to think about what we've done before or what our solutions or what our current implementations can do, and we stop the creativity there, or we don't necessarily think what would be possible if all of our solutions and channels and technologies and teams worked with a common real-time understanding of what's happening with the customer. And if we designed the best possible customer experiences based on what we'd love to know, what we'd love to be able to leverage, that's really where we'd like to start the conversation today. I think for those of us who work closely in the data world, and looking at what data is really signifying, this is really the language that describes what our business relationship is with our customers. Those clicks and swipes and all of those activities that result in great bar charts in our dashboards, underneath them are what people are actually doing, what's motivating, what campaigns and messaging is resonating with them, describing what our historic relationship is with them, what they've purchased previously, what they've clicked on previously, to help us understand what customer preferences really are and how we can better respond and work with them. So I grabbed kind of a funny 1940s or 50s photo here on the right of showing that if we went back before the internet and before all the things that we had and we ran a store, we'd be right in front of our customers and we'd be talking to them and seeing what they're picking up and engaging with them. And our goal with data is really one and the same. It's to look and better understand what our customers are doing so that we as marketers and customer insight professionals and customer experience professionals can create really immersive, fantastic experiences that engage them, that differentiate from our competitors, and at the end of the day, let's be honest, help to grow our business and grow our conversion rates. The struggle, and the struggle is real, and I imagine many of you can identify with some of this, but a study that came out last year with eConsultancy asked businesses and asked marketers that engage across multiple channels, which we all do, and work with multiple technologies, of which from Tealium's own research, most companies are working with at least 20 to even 30 different technologies to build their customer experience. And each of those 20 to 30 technologies has their own way that they handle data, their own view of a customer. And from the survey that eConsultancy did late last year, found that really only 8% of businesses today have a single cohesive platform that's empowering and powering each one of those great technologies and channels and sets of devices with the same data. So I think a lot of us struggle to realize our creative potential because oftentimes we have a system that can't get in line, or those systems can't have a real-time understanding of what's going on with the customer. So our goal today in the conversation, and again joined by fantastic industry leaders from Domo and Yahoo, is to talk about some of the core approaches to getting your data together and then what you can actually do once it's together. So I thought I'd kick us off by thinking about 4 of the really core components that we need to look at for mastering customer data from a marketing perspective. The first is we need to standardize what we at Tealium call a data layer across all of our touch points. So that means describing what's going on in my web experience, in my mobile applications, and getting a common definition and a common set of data that's described in all of those channels so that I can use that as building blocks to get us to the second point, to help us build a visitor or customer profile. And you can see I intentionally am blurring those two together, which I'll talk about in a moment, but allows us to build a neutral, universal customer profile that, again, can be made available to all of my vendors in my ecosystem. The third is then to ensure that all the technologies, channels, teams, and vendors that I work with are able to leverage this and take advantage of it, and that I'm able to work with fantastic best-of-breed BI solutions like Domo to be able to close the loop and gain more insights, because leveraging data is one thing from being able to target a customer, but without being able to understand and see what's working and drill in and uncover new nuggets of insight, I'm not able to take my business forward and continue to optimize beyond what I'm doing today. So to take a few of these and walk through them here, I mentioned this concept of a data layer. And if we think about this, this graphic that we have on the right-hand side, let's think about exploding for a moment your web page or a mobile view into 3 sections. You have the experience layer on top, which is what your users, customers, visitors interact with. That's all the cool graphics and messaging and all the cool stuff that you worked on. And then at the bottom of that, we have the applications and technologies that help build that. In between the two of those is really the data that's describing what's going on in how the user is actually interacting. So if I think about a typical e-commerce product page, some of the elements of the data layer would be things like a product name, a product ID or SKU number, or what the price of this product or the product color. Coming up with a common set of definitions and a common data layer allows you to then describe how this particular experience is captured, and allows all of your vendors to have access to the wealth of that information, as opposed to what commonly happens outside of this is every vendor is in it for themselves. They get access to whatever they can or whatever your dev team can expose to them, and that limits the potential of what you can get from these technologies. If you think about what I could do with building my implementation for my analytics solution or a BI solution, it's only as good as the data that I can get to them. So I want to make sure that I can get as much data and in the cleanest possible way to those technologies. And that's really one of the things that we've focused on from the beginning here at Tealium. I and many other folks at Tealium started our careers in the analytics space. And so by really thinking about how I can build out a data layer concept and use that as the building block, that's really key. We have some great content on our website, but there's also some great content from an industry consortium with W3C, so I encourage you to explore some of that, that data there. This then, as I mentioned, is the building blocks for you to help describe what your customers are doing and what people are doing. So this is when we start talking about building the cross-channel or omni-channel customer profile. And one of the most important things is to think about what I want to know about people. And let's back away for a moment from customer or visitor and let's talk about people. Because people grow over time in their relationship with me. They're not going to start out by sharing all of their details on day one. Over time, they very well may. And so there's going to be this transition that goes from being an unknown to a known person. And there's going to be a collection of identifiers that help describe that person over time. And that's really part of the puzzle to help people understand who somebody is, what are the identifiers that make them up, and then sharing that data with the vendors that can leverage that. So then making those event level or audience level attributes or segments that I want to share with my technologies available so that I can then target them in display advertising or mobile advertising or on-site personalization, but also make them available to my analytics solutions. And this then follows through in the last part of the core components is to take that understanding of who somebody is, stitch together that profile over time that includes how a person interacts potentially on multiple devices and how they evolve with multiple identifiers, both unknown to known, so that I can build a channel neutral customer journey that follows someone but doesn't care about what happens on mobile or web or something independently, but thinks about targeting this individual and allows the individual to really have choice in how they engage. So in this example here, taking a typical retargeting example, but instead of retargeting in just one channel, making sure that you're sharing the data so that the customer's preferences on how they browse and how they buy and what's happened in other channels is shared and made available to each other channel, so that way you always have the latest real-time understanding of who somebody is. So to continue the conversation, I'd love to turn it over to Paul Sieverts from Domo to really talk about how to go deeper with working with this real-time data. So Paul, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. So happy to share a few things of my experience with Domo as well as some of our clients and bringing together this data. So just briefly touch on, so before Domo, I started an internet marketing firm. We built it to the point where we had about 20 employees, 30 clients, and I got to say the first 5 days of every month I absolutely dreaded. And in talking with digital marketers, I'm sure everyone recognizes these logos. So the first 5 days of the month, we had to log in to each one of these platforms and export the data from the previous month. And so regular basis, we're grabbing web data from Google Analytics and advertising data from these other platforms. If it's a lead gen, we're having to go into Salesforce. If it's e-commerce, we were often going into Magento. And these are small and medium-sized businesses. And so those first 5 days of the month, it was just nothing but reports and exports and joining the data, trying to make sense of it to then serve up to our clients and let them know how the campaigns were going, try to earn their business month after month. And so we live by this mantra: you can't improve what you can't measure. And so it was a big thing going into each of these. But even the smallest of clients was in 5, 10, 15 of these platforms and technologies. So, but what was interesting is, even though we try to live by this, you can't improve what you can't measure, an analogy is there was often a 9-foot brick wall between us and our clients for lead generation projects, where we would be essentially tossing the leads over the wall. We knew that they were generating X number of leads and the cost per lead, but once they were, the web leads were generated, again, we were just tossing that lead over the wall. From there, we did not know what was going on. In Salesforce, we didn't know which channels, which campaigns within those channels were driving the best quality leads. And that was in a pretty simple case in that previous job. Nowadays, I'm sure many of you have seen this technology landscape and the thousands of technology uh, products and platforms that there are. They all vie for our attention. Advertising and promotion, CRM, social data, A/B testing. It's definitely overwhelming, and it's the modern marketer's dilemma nowadays is this data overload. Scarce data is a thing of the past. It's now an issue that we have so much data that it can often distract us from what's truly important. So I just want to briefly touch on some best practice KPI learnings that I've had personally. Hopefully some of them will apply to you. You can take some action items, things that you can be implementing in your day-to-day marketing efforts. And it's all about progress, not perfection. So this first one, executive buy-off and alignment. I would invite you, if you haven't done it recently, to sit down, make a list of, I would say, no more than 3 to 5 KPIs that you are focused on a quarter basis or monthly, and you write those down. You go to your boss and you ask him or her what KPIs you should be measured to and what you should be optimizing to. And it's kind of interesting. I think we'd all be surprised how often those 3 or 5 KPIs aren't in perfect alignment. And so that's just the first thing. You want to be optimizing to what matters most to your boss and what, as an organization, you're focused on. The second note here, careful of vanity metrics. Keyword rankings are great, just as an example here. But to go from the 13th ranking to a 3rd place ranking in Google, what does that mean? Well, without knowing the context of how many additional visitors, how many additional leads did that get you? Same with Facebook followers. You could 3x or 5x the number of followers, but if those followers aren't bringing you additional visitors, leads, orders, then it can be called a vanity KPI. This 10-to-1 return on ad spend. I was at a Google conference last week, and the CEO of a company was presenting on some of the things that he's learned and the mistakes he's made, and one of them was he preached all day long a 10-to-1 return on ad spend. And he realized years later, when he told his digital team to hit that at all costs. And so the question is, if you could get 100 orders at a 10-to-1 return on ad spend, does that assume you wouldn't want 1,000 orders at an 8-to-1 return on ad spend? And so, it can be a vanity KPI that is that just what's ideal, or would you not take a slightly lower return on ad spend? So you need the qualitative KPIs with the quantitative volume. Third one, KPIs you should be able to control. So SQO, a sales qualified opportunity. Closed deal for Domo, it's a long sales cycle. So if my KPIs are to those end of funnel metrics, then it's going to be really difficult for me to fully know how I'm influencing those. For example, lead scoring could change, lead routing of our sales team, the sales compensation. There's many factors that affect those qualified opportunity and those closed deals that are beyond my control. So, focus on what you have access to and control. The accessible in real time, pretty straightforward there. You don't want it to be something that you rely on a handful of others to prepare that data for you to be able to work from it. And then the data accuracy, I came across this just 2 months ago. One of my analysts was presenting a channel report on LinkedIn, and luckily he came to me before presenting it to my boss, and I immediately saw that the spend was off, the revenue was off, and as it turns out, it was including field marketing spend on our LinkedIn channel, and it also didn't include nearly, I'll just say a significant amount of advertising credits and refunds that they had given us over time, which, by the API may not be showing up there. And so the data accuracy, that has to be there. Otherwise, in this case, the stat of 40% of strategic processes fail because of that poor data. So I just want to touch on 2 use cases today of leveraging data and some of the results. So Domo, for those that don't know, the business optimization platform that gives you access to all the relevant data that you as a digital marketer need But it's not just for digital marketers, it's across all cross-functional teams. Really powerful ability to turn your data into decisions. And you can customize it to your needs. And so I want to go through two use cases. This first one is one that we just went through here at Domo on the marketing team, where we were driving a significant amount of leads, 10,000 leads per month for our sales team. The issue was a large percentage of those, 60%, were not automatically MQLing or becoming a marketing qualified lead, and they weren't getting called and worked by the sales team as efficiently as MQLs. We're all trying to drive not only leads but qualified leads for our sales team. So what we did is we had data coming into Domo from Infer, which is a lead scoring system that we've used, and so we could easily see month over month how are the A leads versus B, C, D on down. And so once we had that Infer data coming in on lead scoring here, we then needed to, we were already bringing in the lead scoring data. We wanted to know which channels were driving those higher quality leads. And this is dummy data, but in this case, we can see the LinkedIn is the dark green went from, and these are auto MQLs, which are those A leads, from 32% up to 35%, so it's growing there. In this example here, the light green AdWords dropped from 28% to 10 to 11% over this time frame. So we can begin to layer in the data, and so this joins the Infer lead scoring with our web leads and the form fills by channel. And the cool thing about this is this becomes available in real time. It's always automated. Once it's created, all of our channel managers can now go into Domo and be able to see how lead scoring is going by the channels that they manage. And beyond this is just a simple example of empowering those channel managers with that real-time data. They'd also be able to dive into LinkedIn and see, well, which campaigns in LinkedIn are driving those MQL leads, or which campaigns in AdWords have those slipped from. Again, just an example. The second use case, this is the Tribune Publishing Company. So they're a media and marketing solutions company, and they provide advertising solutions and to millions of people. They turn to their digital and print publications for news, entertainment, shopping guides. So it puts them in a unique position for home buyer leads. And so in this case, they weren't able to capture though and show the value that they were providing to their clients that were doing the advertising for their homes. And customer retention was stagnating at 50% because they just couldn't show the end advertiser the types of returns that they were getting. It was a big problem for the Tribune. So then they found Domo. They were able to bring in all their metrics from digital, from field, from print, from radio, and everything changed. They were able to track all the marketing campaigns from beginning to end, and they can now demonstrate their value to the dollar to their advertisers and show what's happening with their product, and it's resulted in a 3x growth with their clientele. So I just wanted to touch on these few things, and you can't improve what you can't measure. As digital marketers, it's often a challenge to get all that data in one place, and we find ourselves spending more time managing marketing technologies rather than actually launching creative campaigns and ads. And so, if what you are trying to measure, if it's taking hours or days or weeks to get, or it's not in context, doesn't tell you the full picture, you're missing out on more powerful marketing campaigns. And a solution like Domo allows you to automatically connect to all that, the Yahoo, Google, Facebook, and other relevant data sources and see it in a single dashboard, and allows me to better optimize my spend. But not only, so again, going back to my beginning experience at the agency where you're just throwing leads over the wall, in this case, we're able to pull in that Salesforce CRM data and optimize the down funnel KPI metrics, not just click-throughs or cost per lead. And so it empowers me to be a better marketer and make those data-driven decisions. And with that, I'll kick it back to Adam.
Thank you so much, Paul. I think my new mantra in life is going to be you can't improve what you can't measure. So thank you very much for that. As a quick reminder to those on the line, if you have questions or want to dig into anything that Paul presented or the case studies from Tribune, feel free to use the Q&A box, and we'll have a few minutes towards the end of the presentation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Justin Thomas from Yahoo.
Thanks, Adam. A lot of great content so far, and I'm excited to talk about connecting online ads with offline sales. So let's get started. So today's shoppers are always connected, and they do a ton of research, and shoppers have many options on how to spend their money, whether it is buying online or purchasing in-store. And with the strong growth of mobile, consumers are often using multiple devices during the shopping experience, which means they're being exposed to your website, your app, or even your messenger bot. It's no wonder that in a recent eMarketer study, 59% of shoppers said that the most important part of their shopping experience is consistency between online and in-store experience, followed by consistency across devices. However, only 36% of retailers claim to offer a seamless experience. Creating a consistent online and offline experience is not easy, and that's why shoppers value consistency so much. And like we said, mobile continues to change the way we buy. The latest Nielsen data shows that 72% of shoppers research an item before purchasing it, 60% of shoppers use smartphones to find a store, and 70% of shoppers use mobile devices to check the price of an item. In addition, eMarketer predicts that mobile commerce in the U.S. will continue to grow rapidly in 2016, propelled by smartphones with larger screens, better smartphone UI designs, better mobile search, and more effective use of mobile personal assistants. Currently, 84% of U.S. smartphone users are mobile shoppers, and 44% of smartphone users purchase through their phone. The number of mobile shoppers will continue to grow, and eMarketer expects to see double-digit growth this year alone. This means your customers are providing more and more mobile data for you to use, and more data for you to optimize their experience and make it consistent. But no one said more data makes things easier. In fact, this exponential growth of customer data presents three challenges. Challenge number one, incomplete measurement across platform and devices. Number two, difficulty in tying online campaigns to offline sales. And number three, the need to measure user engagement beyond the click. Furthermore, 33% of marketers fear omni-channel approaches. To respond to these changing behaviors, we need to change the way we measure. We need to connect the data online to the data offline to ensure accurate targeting, accurate personalization, and attribution. And when you add in the challenge of connecting offline data, you may feel like Fred Flintstone driving a car with your feet. You literally have to do a lot of the footwork yourself to connect offline data with your online data, whereas working with your online conversion data feels more like the Jetsons flying car, especially when you have Tealium helping with the process. Connecting online sales with offline data isn't easy to do, otherwise everyone would do it. However, at Yahoo, and through the help of Tealium, we offer services to track in-store purchases, and we can map those purchases back to our Yahoo users. And that's where closed-loop measurement comes to help. Closed-loop measurement is the concept of looking at all the users who saw your ads and matching those users up with all the online and offline purchases. This essentially provides advertisers with a complete end-to-end picture, or closed loop, of the campaign performance. So let's talk about how this works. Yahoo, the first step is Yahoo establishes a target audience and defines test and control groups so that we can compare the purchases of those that saw the ad versus those who didn't see the ad. Then Yahoo serves ads to the target audience, and we securely send exposure data to our measurement partner. Step 3, the partner then provides Yahoo with aggregated transactions and spend level for users exposed to those campaigns. And then finally, in step 4, the offline data is used to optimize the online ad campaign, and the offline data is used to measure the return on ad spend. This is all done with high levels of encryption to protect user privacy. And speaking of optimizations, you can measure these optimizations through Yahoo Gemini. Yahoo Gemini allows daily in-flight measurement, and they give retailers a continuously daily read on online and offline campaign metrics, including return on ad spend, conversion data, optimal frequency, optimal device type, and optimal ad creative. Additionally, Yahoo allows you to use up to 3 tracking pixels, including our own Yahoo dot tag and other third-party pixels, so that you can better compare the performance of your campaigns and evaluate the return on ad spend. Furthermore, we can measure offline sales impact by combining our Yahoo data with in-store data from our partners like Acxiom, Epsilon, Nielsen Catalina, and many more. And lastly, you can verify the right users are seeing your ad through our audience verification tools. Now, let's talk about a retailer who saw great results combining online and offline data. A leading brick-and-mortar furniture retailer used Yahoo's closed-loop solution and Epsilon, one of our partners. Together, we tracked both online and in-store purchases. The results were amazing, and the return on ad spend was 30 times the initial ad spend invested. We also captured new data, which was that 45% of users completed their purchase offline after seeing the ad. By combining online and offline data, we were able to see a 58% increase in conversions and get a better understanding in how the ads performed. Chobani is another marketer who saw amazing results with the closed-loop measurement solution and Gemini. As the nation's #1 Greek yogurt brand, Chobani knows how important it is to understand what drives their customers' buying decisions. But the team needed help in finding out how their search advertising efforts were impacting in-store sales and if the return truly justified their spending. To get detailed insights, Chobani partnered with Yahoo on a new campaign and a unique closed-loop sales measurement study. The results were impressive. Consumers exposed to Chobani's search ads spent an incremental 9% on the brand, resulting in a 1.3% greater market share for Chobani. And to wrap up, if there are just 3 things you walk away with today, they are: number 1, the growth of mobile is generating more online data, making it more difficult for retailers to create a consistent experience between their online and offline experiences. Number 2, closed-loop measurement increases the return on ad spend and increases in-store sales. And finally, number 3, partner with Yahoo Gemini and Tealium to combine online and offline data. And if you want to learn more, feel free to reach out to your Yahoo account team or visit advertising.yahoo.com. Thanks, everyone, and Adam, back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Justin. So we have a few questions that have come in from the Q&A box. If anyone else has questions, please feel free to enter them, and we'll see if we can get to them before we wrap up today. But the first one, Paul, I'll toss this over to you, since we're talking about getting deeper into data and potentially using new solutions to allow us to do this. I'd love to hear your answer to what a realistic time frame might be for an average BI solution going from install to the most important part, which is getting value out of it.
Cool. Fair question. I guess I can't speak to all the BI tools out there, and even Domo. I'm not sure of an exact time frame or average time to install, but I know I've heard it's often within that first month. It definitely depends on what type of resources you have from IT or whoever will be setting up the BI system, but there's value the very first month that it's up and running. I didn't mention this much in my portion, but Domo has these quick start apps that if you've got a Facebook login or some of the other social, Twitter, Google Analytics, you use the same login that you use to get into those platforms. You can put that into Domo through a quick start and immediately, within minutes, start bringing in Google Analytics, web data, and some of your social data. So, but really, it boils down to the data visualization and the insights are only as good as the data that goes into it. So, if you've already got your data in a row and it's cleaned and it's accurate and it's ready to start, gaining those insights from, then I think you can see value right away. If you need to get your KPIs and figure out that database side, I can't speak to that as well as a more technical person could, but I'd say again, you'd see it first month as long as you have the data in place.
Excellent. All right, the next one, Justin, I'll put this one to you. Talking a little bit about the closed loop measurement concept. Is that mostly or only available for search, or can I do that in other channels?
Yeah, so the great thing is that closed loop measurement is actually available for all Yahoo ad types. So whether it's native, display, search, so within Gemini, some of our other platforms as well. So yeah, if you want to learn more, you can reach out to your Yahoo account team because it's available for all our different ad types.
Excellent. And it looks like a couple of the questions were actually answered in the chat window, which is awesome, and one that I didn't get to, which I'll tackle, and then Paul or Justin, if you have any follow-on, that would be great. But the question is, what other parts of the organization might you collaborate with in the task of kind of breaking down data silos? So I think it's interesting. I was working with one of our financial services customers a little while ago that was in the middle of this process of building kind of a data supply chain, if you will, across their organization. And one of the things that he noted that was quite interesting was, they had planned to do this so that they could, primarily the marketing team, could take advantage of data that sits in other parts of the house, CRM profile data, call center data, things like that, so that they could respond accordingly and know what policy somebody has or any other attributes so that they could market to them more effectively in things like email. But he said, what's really interesting is we didn't plan or think too much about how the knowledge that sits in other parts of the organization starts to flow when people are sharing data and there's a common data framework between them. And so, from that perspective, I think looking at other sources of customer data or those that are interacting with customers, again, depending on your type of business, but this includes certainly CRM, in-store, customer support, and then, thinking about those physical, in-store experiences, thinking about where it's not just transactional data, but, potentially are there other technological advancements using things like beacons or geolocation, geofencing that could be interesting, through mobile. So certainly any of the parts of the organization that are part of the customer experience and collecting and building data. But then I would also encourage the conversation to expand beyond that, even to your engineering, your developers, other folks that may not be responsible for building that data or something to that effect, but certainly might have product or technical approaches that might uncover some new ways to look at data, new ways to capture or utilize it. Looks like we might have a couple more. Let's see if we can do one more question. Let's see. This one I'll take to Tealium, and then it looks like there's another question in here. So there was a question, I thought Tealium was able to, through data partnerships, help to stitch a unified identity across channels together. So absolutely. Tealium started its life in tag management, and for those of you that aren't familiar, gives you the ability to implement tag-based or JavaScript-based solutions, but also then helps you control the data that flows through that. And as we've worked with the hundreds of customers that we work with over time, one of the things that we've helped them to do is not only build, use those building blocks of the data that might flow through all of your tag-based vendors, but use that data to help create a visitor identity, but also use that to stitch together each of the channels and share that data. So that way, just taking the friends that we have on the conversation today from Domo and Yahoo, making sure that our Tealium's job is to make sure that both of those vendors or technology that you use have the same understanding of what's going on with that individual at this moment. So that way your user of Domo, your BI professional, is able to gain insights into what's happening right now at the same time that your growth team and marketing team is working with Justin and Yahoo to build programs and target. We want to make sure that each one of those is stitched together both from our own technologies as well as making sure that we integrate and leverage the great data partnerships that we have. So with that, I think there's one other question that we'll answer offline because I think it already was answered in the Q&A window. But if anyone else has questions, please feel free to write them in, and we'll take them offline and continue the conversation. I'd love to thank our presenters, Paul and Justin, for joining us today. As I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, we'll be sharing out the webcast from today, so you can refer back to and also ask any questions, and any questions that we didn't get to today in the Q&A, we'll make sure to follow up over email. Thanks so much for joining, and we look forward to chatting again soon.